My fiance dumped me for a better man her family chose. She threw the ring at me. You're pathetic, keep your cheap ring. 2 years later, she's losing it after seeing me happy with my successful business and my soulmate. Hey everyone! Before we jump into today's video, I need your help. We've noticed the channel is losing some traction, and subscribing is one of the best ways you can support us. It's quick, free, and it helps us keep bringing you awesome content. Your support means the world. Let's keep this channel growing together. Thanks so much. Now let's start the video. Sup, Reddit. My fiance left me after 4 years together, called me pathetic with delusional dreams, and got with her new guy the same day we broke up. 2 years later, my dreams came true, and I was thriving. The best part? I destroyed her new boyfriend's career. She lost it. Here's what went down. I, 29 male, met my ex-fiancé, 26 female Brooke, in the most ridiculous way possible. I'm sitting in the library at 2 a.m., dead-eyed from coding for 12 hours straight, when this girl with perfectly styled hair and a coffee cup trips and spills her latte all over my laptop. Most people would have lost their minds, but I just looked at her and said, well, at least now my code has some flavor. She laughed instead of running away. 4 years together, engaged for the last 8 months. 4 years of thinking we had something real. I'd proposed with a ring I'd saved up for 6 months to buy. She said yes, cried happy tears, posted pictures on social media with captions about forever. And she'd come over to my third-floor walk-up apartment. My place was maybe 600 square feet. The building had character, which is real estate speak for everything's broken and the landlord doesn't care. But Brooke seemed to love it. We decorated with string lights from Target and posters I'd collected over the years. Then there was my cat Python. Of course I named him that. My rescued tabby who had this annoying habit of knocking everything off every surface. But every night, without fail, he'd curl up between us on the bed. Brooke always claimed she was more of a dog person, but I'd catch her having full conversations with Python when she thought I wasn't around. Brooke's family, her parents never said they hated me outright. Instead, I got the death by 1,000 paper cuts treatment. Her mother would always give me that dismissive look. Her father had this way of asking about my little computer project, with the same tone you'd use to ask a kid about their imaginary friend. Real supportive energy there. Family dinners were like performance art, where I was both the audience and the punchline. But here's the thing. Back then, Brooke seemed different. She'd roll her eyes at their country club drama and make jokes about how stuffy they were. We'd be eating Chinese takeout on my futon, watching Netflix on my laptop that took 5 minutes to buffer anything, and she'd tell me none of the money stuff mattered. Turns out that was complete garbage. But I'm getting ahead of myself. The first real crack in our relationship happened about 6 months before the end. Brooke's college roommate was getting married. I saved up for months to rent a decent tux and buy a wedding gift. Being engaged ourselves, I thought this would be fun. A preview of our own future wedding. When we got to the reception, it was like stepping into a different world. Ice sculptures, live orchestra, champagne that probably cost more per bottle than my monthly grocery budget. Everyone looked like they'd stepped out of a magazine, and I felt like I'd wandered onto the wrong movie set. Brooke fit right in, of course. She was in her element, chatting with old classmates about their jobs at investment banks and consulting firms, their new apartments in trendy neighborhoods, their expensive vacation plans. Meanwhile, I'm standing there nursing a single drink, trying to make conversation with people who kept asking what I do, and then losing interest the moment I mentioned startups. Brooke had specifically requested not to sit with her college friends because they can be a bit much, but somehow we ended up at a table full of her parents' friends instead. Older couples with serious money who spent the entire dinner talking about their stock portfolios and real estate investments. When they asked about my work, I tried to explain my startup in terms they'd understand. Big mistake. One guy literally laughed and said, "Still playing with computers, huh? When are you going to get a real job? Especially now that you're getting married. Time to grow up." And here's the part that stung. Brooke didn't defend me. She just looked embarrassed and changed the subject to the bride's dress. Later, when I brought it up in the car, she said I was being too sensitive and that I should have just played along better. The second incident happened a few weeks later when her mother invited me for coffee without Brooke, just the two of us. We met at this upscale cafe in her neighborhood, the kind of place where a basic latte costs $8 and everyone looks like they're conducting important business meetings. She showed up 15 minutes late wearing designer everything and didn't apologize, just launched straight into her agenda. "I've been thinking about your situation," she said, like my life was a problem she needed to solve. "And I have some connections who might be able to help you find something more stable." She pulled out a folder full of job listings she'd printed out. Entry-level positions at banks, insurance companies, corporate office jobs, the kind of soul-crushing 9-to-5 work that would have killed everything I was passionate about. These are real careers, she explained, sliding the papers across the table. With benefits, retirement plans, growth potential, you could start at the bottom and work your way up like Brody did. I stared at the papers, genuinely speechless. You want me to give up my startup to become, what, a claims adjuster? She looked at me like I was a child refusing to eat vegetables. I want you to be realistic about your future, about Brooke's future. She deserves security, not fairy tales. The conversation went downhill from there. She kept using phrases like, when you're ready to grow up, and Brooke needs a provider, not a dreamer. She never raised her voice, never lost her composure, but every word was designed to make me feel small and inadequate. The worst part? When I told Brooke about it later, she didn't seem surprised or upset that her mother had ambushed me. She just said, she means well. Maybe you should at least look at those jobs, just as a backup plan. That's when I knew the poison was already spreading. The beginning of the end started with what Brooke called just a casual family dinner. She asked me to wear a blazer. When I showed up to their estate, and yeah, it's big enough to call an estate, I realized this wasn't going to be the intimate family gathering Brooke had described. The driveway looked like a luxury car dealership. BMWs, Mercedes, a couple of Audis. My 2008 Honda Civic with the dent in the bumper and the check engine light that had been on since Obama was president looked like it had wandered into the wrong neighborhood. The real kicker? This wasn't just family. Brooke's dad had invited his business associates and their sons. Guys who looked like they'd stepped out of a LinkedIn success story. Ivy League educations, summer internships at Goldman Sachs, fathers who play golf with senators. The kind of people who use summer as a verb. The conversation flowed like they were all reading from the same script. Investment strategies, European vacations, property portfolios. Meanwhile, I'm over here with my most exciting recent purchase being name brand cereal instead of the store brand. Real thrilling stuff. Then came the targeted questions, delivered with surgical precision. So you're still working on that little tech project? Brooke's father asked. It's a startup, I corrected, trying not to sound defensive. We're in early development, but we're making solid progress. I didn't mention that our last investor meeting had been a disaster, or that my co-founder Jake and I had been pulling 80-hour weeks trying to fix a bug in our prototype that was making it crash every time someone tried to upload a file larger than 50 megabytes. Technical difficulties aside, we were broke and running on fumes. One of his friends, this guy with perfect teeth and a February tan that screamed "I winter in Florida," chuckled like I'd just told him the earth was flat. Tech is so volatile these days. You sure it's a wise investment of time? Maybe a backup plan wouldn't hurt? The condescension was so thick you could cut it with a knife. And here's the part that really stung. Brooke didn't say a word in my defense. Usually she'd jump in with something about how passionate I was, or how she believed in what we were building. This time, nothing. Then they brought out Brody. Brooke's mother introduced him like he was the second coming. Brody just made junior partner at a top corporate law firm. Princeton undergraduate, Yale Law. Such a brilliant mind. Brody was everything I wasn't. Tall, perfectly groomed, the kind of guy who probably had his suits tailored and never had to check his bank balance before buying coffee. He talked about his recent bonus, like it was casual conversation. The condo he just bought in the right part of town. His 5-year plan to make full partner. And Brooke? She was eating it up, asking questions about his work, laughing at his mediocre jokes, showing more interest in his career than she'd ever shown in mine. Every question she asked him felt like a small betrayal. I barely said 10 words the entire night. Every time I tried to contribute to the conversation, someone would politely listen for about 5 seconds before steering things back to Brody's accomplishments or someone else's success story. I was watching Brooke transform into someone I didn't recognize. The girl who used to make fun of pretentious people was suddenly one of them. When we got back to my apartment that night, something had shifted. She complained about the broken elevator that had been out of order for months. She wrinkled her nose when Python jumped on the bed, something that had never bothered her before. She mentioned how small the bathroom was, like she was seeing the place for the first time. That's when I knew it was over. I just didn't know she was going to make it official so soon. A week later, Brooke showed up at my place after work, still wearing her business casual outfit from her marketing job at her dad's friend's company. A job she got without an interview, but that's a whole other story about how connections work when you have the right last name. She sat across from me at my tiny IKEA dining table. The same table where we'd had countless takeout dinners, game nights with friends, and late-night conversations about our future together. But this wasn't going to be one of those conversations. We need to talk, she said, and I could tell she'd been rehearsing this. I've been doing a lot of thinking, she continued, not meeting my eyes. About us. About my future. About what I need. I knew where this was heading, but I let her talk. I love you, but I need stability. I can't keep waiting for you to figure it out. My family made me realize I need someone who's already there. Someone who can provide the life I deserve. Someone like Brody, I said flatly. She didn't even have the decency to look surprised that I'd connected the dots. Yes, someone like Brody. And then her mask slipped. Look, I tried to make this work, she said, gesturing around my cramped apartment like it was evidence of some moral failing. I really did, but I can't pretend anymore that this is the life I want. Living in some rundown building, worrying about money, dating someone who can't even afford to take me somewhere nice. This was the same person who used to say she loved our cozy nights in, who claimed she didn't care about fancy restaurants or expensive things. You're 29 years old and you're still playing with computers in your bedroom like you're 19, she continued, her voice getting sharper. Brody owns a condo downtown. He takes me to restaurants where people recognize him. He doesn't have to save up for months just to buy a decent ring. That last part hit like a physical blow. I'd worked double shifts for 6 months to afford her engagement ring. It wasn't huge, but it was real, and I'd been proud of it. Wow, I didn't know that's what you thought about it. 4 years and you're telling me this now, Brooke? Why waste all that time? She continued. I gave you 4 years to get your act together, to become someone worth staying with. But you're still the same broke dreamer I met in college, except now you're older, and it's just pathetic. After some back and forth, the argument escalated, and she did something I'll never forget. She yanked the engagement ring off her finger and threw it at me. It bounced off my chest and clattered onto the floor. Here, take your cheap ring back, she said with disgust. Brody's already talking about getting me a real one. From Tiffany's, not some discount jewelry store. I stared at the ring on the floor. The ring I'd saved up for. The ring she'd cried happy tears over just months ago. The ring that represented everything I'd hoped we'd build together. You know what's pathetic? I said, standing up. Pretending to love someone for 4 years while secretly keeping score. Pretending to be someone you're not because you're too much of a coward to own your shallowness from the start. Her face flushed red. At least I'm not wasting my life chasing some impossible dream that's never going to happen. You're right, I said, picking up the ring from the floor. You're not wasting your life. You're just wasting mine. She grabbed her purse, suddenly eager to leave now that she'd said her piece. Brody is picking me up at 8. The final twist of the knife. She wanted me to know she was going straight from ending our engagement to a date with her upgrade. Good for you, I said, opening the door for her. I hope you're very happy together. 2 days later, 2 days, she was Instagram official with Brody. Not even a week after ending our engagement, there they were in matching outfits at some luxury resort in the Hamptons. His arm around her waist, her smile wide and carefree. Caption, found my forever. Meanwhile, I was still sleeping on the side of the bed we used to share, still finding her hair elastic bands in random places, still had half her stuff in my apartment because she hadn't found time to pick it up yet. The engagement ring sat on my dresser, a daily reminder of how stupid I'd been to believe in forever. I wish I could say I channeled my heartbreak into immediate success, that I became some tech mogul overnight through sheer force of will. But that's movie nonsense. Real life is messier. I spiraled. Hard. My startup crashed exactly 1 month after our breakup. Our investors pulled out after our prototype failed spectacularly during what was supposed to be our big demo. The app crashed 3 times in the first 5 minutes, and when it finally worked, it ran so slowly that everyone in the room started checking their phones. Jake, my co-founder, took a job at Microsoft 2 weeks later. Can't blame him. He had student loans and a girlfriend who actually supported his career. I was suddenly alone with a failed company, a lease I couldn't afford, and savings that were disappearing faster than free food at a college event. I had to give up the apartment, but my friend Kai saved my ass. This guy I'd known since freshman year who never quite understood what I saw in Brooke, but supported me anyway. His place was even smaller than mine, a 1-bedroom where the living room doubled as his office. But he cleared out half his closet without me even asking, and let me and Python crash in his spare room. Kai's reaction when I showed up at his door with my life in garbage bags? Dude, I always knew she was high maintenance, but damn, she really said your ring was cheap. That thing cost more than my car. Then after a pause, well, my car's a piece of shit, but still. That's a real friend right there. Meanwhile, Brooke's perfect new life was playing out like a highlight reel on social media. Vacations to places I'd only seen in movies. Dinners at restaurants where the menu doesn't have prices. Every post felt personal. Like she was saying, see? This is what I deserve. This is what you never could have given me. The absolute lowest point came when I ran into Brooke and Brody at a cafe downtown. I was there picking up an Uber Eats order because that's what my life had become. My car's AC had been broken for 3 months. I couldn't afford to fix it, so I was driving around in 90-degree heat with the windows down, sweating through whatever clean shirt I had left. My phone was at 15% battery after a 10-hour shift, and I still had 4 more deliveries to make if I wanted to hit my daily goal. There they were, sitting outside like they'd stepped out of a lifestyle magazine. Brooke had this new haircut, one of those expensive styles that looks effortless, but probably took 2 hours and cost more than I made in a week. Brody was wearing sunglasses that I'm pretty sure cost more than everything I was wearing combined. They were laughing about something, holding hands across the table, looking like the poster couple for living your best life. Then Brody saw me first. Well, well, he said loudly enough for nearby tables to hear. Look who it is. Still delivering food, I see. His smirk was pure malice. This wasn't accidental recognition. He was enjoying this. Brooke looked up and saw me standing there in my wrinkled Uber Eats shirt, holding a bag of food that cost more than I'd spent on groceries all week. For a split second, I thought I saw something flicker across her face. Guilt, maybe? But then she smiled. Actually smiled. The condescension was suffocating. I grabbed the bag and walked away without another word. But I heard Brody say, just loud enough for me to catch, "Dodged a bullet there, didn't we?" And Brooks laugh in response. That moment broke something in me. Standing there in the summer heat, sweating through my uniform, listening to my ex-fiancée and her new boyfriend mock my failures. That was the last day I allowed myself to be a joke. I went home to Kai's apartment that night, deleted every social media app from my phone, and told him what happened. His response? Bro, that guy sounds like the kind of person who thinks mayo is spicy. And she laughed? Nah, man. Time to show these trust fund babies how the real world works. I cut everything out. Social media, distractions, self-pity, negative people. I went into full rebuild mode like my life depended on it. Sleep became a luxury I couldn't afford. 4 hours a night if I was lucky. Days were for Uber Eats, evenings were for my night shift stocking shelves at the grocery store, and any spare moment was spent rebuilding my startup from scratch. But this time was different. I got smart about it. No more chasing investors with half-baked ideas and flashy presentations. I learned to bootstrap, to build something real before asking for anyone's money. No more trusting people easily. I kept my circle small. Just Kai and a couple other ride-or-die friends who'd proven themselves when things got ugly. Kai was incredible through all of this. He'd bring me coffee during my late-night coding sessions, make sure I ate something besides protein bars, and never once complained about me turning his living room into a disaster zone. He even helped me land my first few enterprise clients through connections at his job. Didn't ask for anything in return, just wanted to see me succeed. For 2 years, I completely disappeared from Brooke's world. Had no idea what she was doing, who she was with, whether she was happy. And honestly, I stopped caring. While she was playing house with Brody, I was grinding harder than I'd ever worked in my life. My new startup idea came from my previous failure. Instead of trying to create some revolutionary consumer app that would change the world, I pivoted to B2B software. Specifically, AI-powered contract analysis for law firms. Kai's take on this pivot. So you're basically building software to replace lawyers? Dude, you're going to save